This day in sports history. It's August 20th, and on this day we had the infamous New York Yankee Harmonica Incident. Tiger and Bob May dueled it out at Valhalla, and the youngest guy to ever hit a home run in the major leagues. So stick around. This is going to be fun. This episode is brought to you by Stirling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Stirling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Stirling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Stirling Roastery a try at stirlingsoap.com. So let's start with what happened on this day in 1964 when a harmonica led to a bit of discord with the New York Yankees and eventually led to Yogi Berra's firing as the manager. The Yankees had just been swept by the Chicago White Sox in a 4-game series at Comiskey. In the final game of the series, they'd been blanked 5-0, and they managed just 7 hits. The 4 straight losses had moved the Yankees to 4.5 games back in the American League. The mood of the players as they got on the bus was not good, and it got worse when they were delayed leaving the ballpark for O'Hare Airport. They had a 4-game series in Boston they needed to get to, and they wanted to put the distaste of Chicago in the rear-view mirror. Phil Linz was a backup infielder. In his 7-year career, he would hit only .235 with 11 home runs. By his own admission, he wasn't too good of a ball player. He also wasn't much of a harmonica player, but his sense of timing may have been even worse. With the bus delayed leaving, Linz thought it would be a good time to pull out the brand new harmonica he'd bought in Chicago and work on the tune he'd been learning. In fact, with it, he pulled out the Learn by Numbers pamphlet that came with it, and he started blowing Mary Had a Little Lamb. Well, it didn't take manager Yogi Berra long to react, and he yelled to the back of the bus where Linz was butchering the song to shove that harmonica up your... Well, you can probably fill in the blank there. Linz was concentrating on his playing, and he didn't quite hear what the first-year Yankees skipper had said. So Linz turned to Mickey Mantle across the aisle, and he said, "Hey, Mick, what did he say?" Without blinking an eye, Mantle responded, "He said, play it louder." So Linz kept on playing, and a little bit louder. Berra got up from his seat in the front, and Linz said he'd never seen Yogi so mad. He feared the manager was going to hit him, so as he's walking down the bus aisle towards him, Linz flips the harmonica at Berra. Yogi caught it and threw it back at him, except Yogi had lost a bit of aim since retiring as a catcher, and the harmonica hit Joe Pepitone's knee. Berra started screaming at Linz about how you'd think we just won 4 straight. Things on the bus were tense to the airport and then on the plane ride to Boston. Reporters were traveling with the team on the bus, and the story of Berra, Linz, and the harmonica were in every New York and Boston newspaper the next day. Linz went to Yogi the next day before the game, and he apologized for his poor timing and being disrespectful. Berra fined him $250. But the story didn't quite end there. For the rest of the season, wherever the Yankees played, harmonicas would be tossed onto the field. Linz actually signed an endorsement deal with Hohner Harmonicas for $10,000, and he was on the back cover of the 1965 Yankee yearbook with the caption, "Play it again, Phil." But wait, there's even more to this story. The Yankees dropped the next 2 games in Boston, but then they went on a tear to close out the season and win the pennant. They played the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series that year, but lost in 7 games. Berra was fired after the World Series defeat, and one of the reasons cited for his dismissal was the harmonica incident. General manager Ralph Houck thought the argument that happened on this day in '64 was due to Yogi having lost the locker room and he couldn't control his team. Linz said Yogi never held the Harmonica Incident against him, but he did regret not getting in on that harmonica endorsement deal. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. On this day in 2000, Tiger Woods won his 3rd consecutive major championship, but it did not come easy. This was the PGA Championship played at Valhalla Country Club in Louisville, Kentucky. Tiger jumped out on day 1 with a 6-under par 66 and a share of the lead. A 67 on Friday put him in the lead by a shot. Journeyman Bob May, who was still looking for his first tour win, had jumped up the leaderboard with a 66. When Tiger shot 70 on Saturday, May's 2nd straight 66 put him just 1 shot back heading into Sunday's round. The two were paired up as the final group on this day, and if there ever was a David versus Goliath matchup in golf, this was it. But May did not shrink. He loaded up his slingshot. He didn't try to do anything different. That was the key. He knew he was going to be outdriven off the tee all day long. But if you're in the final pairing at a major on Sunday, well, you've been doing something right, so you just keep on doing that. The pair were clear of the field when they made the turn, and that was when the real fun started. May had a chance to grab control of the tournament on 15. May had a 1-shot lead at that point, and he'd stuck his approach to 4 feet and was staring at a birdie. Tiger had missed the green, but was able to get up and down for the par. May missed the shorty, and the lead stayed at 1. Tiger birdied 17 to square the match. On 18, May rolled in an 18-foot downhill double breaker for his birdie. It was the first time he'd birdied 18 all week, and it put pressure on Tiger to make his 5-foot birdie putt. He did, sending it to a new 3-hole aggregate playoff format. On the first playoff hole, May hit an incredible pitch shot to within 6 inches to salvage par. Tiger was looking at a 20-foot birdie putt, and this is one that you've probably seen a whole lot in any Tiger highlight reel. He sends it on its way, and with about 5 feet to go, he starts fast walking to it, and then he points at it as it drops in the side door.
Tiger Woods for his birdie. Paul was running after it. He ran after it. He got there before the ball did. I don't believe it. How about that? I've never seen him do that.
Both golfers made par the next hole, and then when they got to the 3rd and final playoff hole, there is a little bit of a conspiracy theory that's been circulating since that day. Tiger's tee shot on the 18th went way left, and there's only one camera angle of it, and when you look at it, you see a guy pointing to an area where he believes Tiger's ball came to rest in a bunch of heather. And then there's another guy, the so-called guy in the white shirt, who's running, and all of a sudden you see a ball squirt out and bounce along the cart path before finally coming to rest on a flat piece of ground. Now, the conspiracy theory is that it doesn't seem like a ball would have regained so much momentum. It looked as if it had been kicked. Now, Golf Digest looked into it as best as they could earlier this year, but due to a change to the area where Tiger's ball had landed, it wasn't possible to do some kind of a computer reconstruction. They did ask a fan who'd been there that day and was in the area. He and his father-in-law believed they'd witnessed fan interference with Tiger's ball, putting him in a much better position. In their words, Bob May was robbed. Now, it is what it is. Tiger hit a masterful bunker shot in the end, and Bob May's miracle birdie slid right on past the hole. Tiger won the playoff by a shot, giving him his second PGA Championship. It was also the first time since Ben Hogan in 1953 that a golfer had won 3 majors in the same year. And this was the third leg of what would become the Tiger Slam, with his win at the Masters the following April. On this same day, 6 years later, Tiger won his third PGA Championship, this one held at Medina in Illinois. He started off the day in a tie for the lead with Luke Donald, but then went out and blistered the course with a 66. Medina was a place where he felt pretty comfortable since it was the site of his first PGA Championship way back in '99. And once again, Woods finished up his 4 days at 18 under, equaling his score in relation to par from 6 years before. It was his 12th major golf tournament he'd won, and it was the 5th time he'd won a major by 5 shots or more. Now, from early on, Tiger always paid homage to black golfers who'd come before him, and he was especially fond of Charlie Sifford. Well, on this day in 1967, Sifford won his first official PGA Tour event. This was the Greater Hartford Open in Connecticut, and I said official because, well, Sifford had actually won the Long Beach Open in 1957, but that was only a 54-hole event, and it wasn't considered an official PGA event. So anyway, on this day, Sifford shot a final round 64 to beat Steve Opperman by a stroke. When his ball dropped, the all-white crowd around the green erupted in cheers. It marked the first win ever by an African-American golfer on the PGA Tour. He was congratulated by fellow pros and little white kids asking for his autograph, and it was a stark contrast to what he'd faced breaking into the PGA, and he was pretty emotional afterwards receiving his winner's check, saying, "If you try hard enough, anything can happen." And let's go back to the baseball diamond to finish off today's show. On this day in 1945, little Tommy Brown homered off Preacher Row, becoming the youngest major leaguer to ever hit a home run. He was 17 years, 4 months, and 14 days. Brown was playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers at this point after signing as a 16-year-old, and just like the Joe Nuxall story, Brown was only on the team because so many Major League ball players were serving their country in World War II. He had been called up from the minors to make his Major League debut in 1944. He started off the 45 season back in the minors before being brought up again to play shortstop in August. The Pittsburgh Pirates were in town on this day playing the Dodgers at Ebbets Field, and they had opened up a 6-0 lead when Brown came to the plate in the 7th. He launched a Preacher Row pitch over the left field fence for the only Brooklyn run of the day in an 11-1 loss. When the boys came back from the war, Brown was sent back to the minors, but he was brought back up 2 seasons later, and he played with the Dodgers until 1951 before being traded to Philadelphia and then to the Chicago Cubs. He would eventually hit a total of 31 homers in his career, but he is still and probably always will be the youngest to ever hit a home run in Major League Baseball history. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you happened to find a deep hole that went all the way to the center of the earth, and then you unfortunately fell in that hole, it would take you about 19 minutes to reach your final destination, and probably question a lot of your life choices on the way down. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.